Alright, so welcome back to NOTG. Today we're going to talk about pre-catalyst opportunity. One of the frameworks within the opportunity is called the pre-catalyst opportunity. When we talk about first mover, we can take an example of MBS before it was announced and after it was announced. The quantum leap of the sale at Marina Bay, especially for the first tower that was launched. Sometimes when URA release their master plan of a certain area, certain areas gets very heated up very quickly in terms of actual realistic development. Certain areas, after it's being announced, it takes 10-15 years before we start to see things taking shape. So we want to look at the audience size. So when it comes to resale properties, Freehold has the largest base of audience because people who are okay with 99, they can also consider Freehold. People who only want Freehold, they only want to buy Freehold. But 99 years,
feeling like a brand new me. For the very first time, I'm right where I'm meant to be.
we talk about opportunity in our triangle of decision making when it comes to real estate investment. One of the frameworks within the opportunity is called the pre-catalyst opportunity. Let me give you an example of what is this now. This is an identification of opportunity in a growth area. One of the reasons why this launch has done so well is because I believe a lot of home buyers, they have identified that this could be a growth zone that the government is focusing on, because on the surface it looks like this is just one of the first condos across an enclave of landed properties, and it's all greenery and forested area over here. But of course, once they have seen the master plan, they realize that these are three massive residential plots that's going to link the entire Springleaf MRT area into Lentor as well. It's going to be like a huge township. And this new township is connecting Springleaf and Lentor. And Lentor has already have multiple launches. And Springleaf is identified by a lot of investors as a first mover. And of course, when we talk about first mover, we can take an example of MBS before it was announced and after it was announced. The quantum leap of the sale at Marina Bay, especially for the first tower that was launched, because the first tower was launched at about $900 per square foot. Second tower is 1,000, 2,000, 3, and that time MBS is already announced, which the casino and everything is all out already. And the moment there's a so-called like pre-catalyst movement before something big is being announced, the upscale appreciation is usually one of the best. And I want to talk a little bit about this zone over here, which is Bayshore. This site has some very interesting things going on, because I realized that based on master plan movement, sometimes when URA release their master plan of a certain area, certain areas gets very heated up very quickly in terms of actual realistic development. Certain areas, after it's being announced, it takes 10-15 years before we start to see things taking shape. All right, I give an example. When I started real estate in the year 2007 to 2009, there's already news of the entire Kallang Riverside being revamped. There's already a lot of features about the new stadium and all that, and we all thought that there's going to be new resi plots upcoming. However, I think the amount of resi plots that's coming out in Kallang Riverside is still not happening that rapidly, maybe because of certain reasons, site study, soil survey and stuff like that, or feasibility study, which sometimes the government needs no more time. But then Bayshore seems to be moving at a very accelerated pace. And of course, this has already started to take shape. In fact, the HDBs are up. There's a land plot GLS that has already been bidded. And of course, there's already a successful bid. And this zone is pretty interesting. It's all zone, very high-rise residential. And this plot has already been bidded at 1388 PSF PPR by Singhai E. So basically, there's 8 bids coming in. Pretty strong. And of course, this is stipulated to launch next year, which a lot of analysts, they are predicting between 2.6 to maybe about 2.8, 2.9. We still don't know the exact price yet, but this, of course, will be something that is very interesting, because for the Bayshore region, This is stipulated to be the first launch for private properties. And one of the thing that we have analyzed is that Bayshore has a very clean demarcation of the types of residential property. So this is the new zone with all the upcoming things, the malls and the MRT station being right there. Beautiful township is going to be created. There's a combination of high-rise new condos at HDB with seafront facing and non-seafront facing. Some of them are internal facing, some of them face towards the low-rise freehold apartments and landed homes. And of course, there's a landed zone here, couple of landed properties here as well, flushed by low-rise apartments because of the plot ratio. And here are the three massive older 99 years condo, the Bayshore Costa del Sol and Bayshore Park, which they are already of a certain age category. So I think here there's a very interesting price comparison that will happen once we know what is the rough estimated launch price next year. And what is the key difference is that these are all 99 years property. These are all 99 years. These are landed. These are freehold low-rise apartments. And some projects are pretty big, like the Summit. You have Pulbury as well. And of course, when we look at this differential, we want to see what is going to be the price gap. Because for example, if this guy is going to be 2008, 2009 or 3000 for some of the high floor seafront facing units for 99 years. And if here, they're still trading at maybe 1006, 1008 PSF, that's going to create a nice benchmark. So example, let's come to the screen a little bit. So if this is going to be 28 to 3000 PSF, I just take an example. Let's say somebody buys 1,000 square feet 3-bedder, a 3-bed premium, all right? That is going to cost $2.8 million to $3 million. Now, the freehold properties here, if it's still doing at about 1,008 PSF, and let's say they are averagely maybe about $2.6 million for a 3-bed freehold, then it's going to create some very interesting comparison because on the surface, there is like a $1,000 PSF gap. The quantum might be pretty similar, or maybe the developer is going to be very sensitive about the size they might create, maybe 700 plus, 800 plus, or 900 plus square feet to bring down the quantum to maybe 2.6 million. And to try and match the quantum of the existing older resale low rise here with older facilities and all that, to try and make sense for the buyers that, okay, this is something brand new, high rise, 2.6, $2.7 million, you get a 3-bedder. But then, do you want to stay in the older project? I know that it's freehold, but this is a brand new project, 99 years, seafront facing, or maybe very good facilities, very nice facade and all that, all right? So this is something that developers are calibrating because there's harmonization. They can take advantage of the smaller size. But then on the surface, PSF is still a gap, right? So what will happen is that if the PSF gap is big enough, then sometimes we need to decide, all right, should we go for quantum or we go for PSF play, which is always a topic. Because for example, if somebody were to go in at this price in the year 2026, 4 years later when it TOP, naturally, when they enter 28 to 3000, they have to sell 3001 to about 3003 PSF. And that's going to create an even bigger gap than the 1008 PSF here, to bring the gap to about $1,003 to $1,005 PSF gap. And sometimes it depends. If there are good deals over here, you should also look at the freehold properties. If the quantum makes sense to you and you want something brand new, then by all means. But sometimes it doesn't mean all doesn't see appreciation because there are freehold lovers. There are people who only want freehold properties. There are people who want a larger space, lower PSF, and they can play the PSF appreciation gap. Because what will happen is that in the year 2030, if you buy something at 1008 PSF here, and all you need is to sell at maybe 2001 PSF, you will still have $1,000 gap from the TOP 99 years brand new launch. And there will still be buyers that are willing to buy. So basically, sometimes the key benefit is that once you enter, you can stay here for 4 years. Here, of course, progressive payment, you can't stay. So there's always pros and cons of new versus freehold resale. All right. And when we look at this, we also want to determine, is there also a chance for a double catalyst appreciation push? Why? Because sometimes after this property is being sold out, people who cannot take the chance to get something here, they might start to look at surrounding properties. Instead of realize that, hey, Bayshore is developing so fast, maybe let me just go for a resale and enter this price. And sometimes in between, just in a short span of time, this might move up to about $2,000 PSF, and you instantly gain $200 PSF. And maybe upon TOP, this will even move up to maybe $2,400 PSF, because these guys are selling at 3.1 to 3.3, and people might want to close up the gap over here to be about $700 to $900 PSF gap, which is fair enough for a new versus old, and this is still a freehold property. So sometimes in total, this might even make more in terms of PSF gain. PSF, we call it a double catalyst PSF push. And if you were to buy something at about 1,002 square feet, a $600 gain is going to bring you to about 720K improvement in your valuation. So we call this the double catalyst PSF push for resale properties, but not all properties enjoy that. You need to make sure that there are certain features. We look at the fact that is there enough volume. Sometimes freehold properties is easier to attain that because there's a stronger tenure, stronger reason, bigger audience that sometimes you can think about, because we must always understand the buyer audience is extremely important. If you're going for older resale properties, buyers are very worried about the balance lease because of Bala's curve. All right, Bala's curve, take note. 2 points, 30 years and 60 years balance lease. Balance 60 years, you will start to face restriction by the next buyer that wants to buy because the CPF needs to fulfill valuation limit. They cannot use all their CPF for the monthly installment, all right, if they have not meet certain minimum sum and all that kind of stuff. 30 years, banks do not loan, all right, and you are not allowed to use CPF. Everything you buy must be full cash. So usually, once it starts from this point, you start to see stagnation in valuation. You can look at some of the older properties along East Coast as well. Seafront facing, older already, 50 years, they will start to see some stagnation in price. So 99 years, naturally, once they are older, your audience will drop. If it's freehold, your audience maintains. So we want to look at the audience size. So when it comes to resale properties, freehold has the largest base of audience because people who are okay with 99, they can also consider freehold. People who only want freehold, they only want to buy freehold. But 99 years, new launches, 99 years, newly TOP project, 99 years properties that are below 20 years old, and then of course you have the 99 years older version. All right, so you must note the audience reduces as you move up this chain. And of course, if you were to go for something that you can get good value, freehold resale in this zone in the Bayshore area, depending on what's the launch price. And of course, if the launch is fantastic in terms of quantum price, then I think there's an advantage as well. But just wait and see what happens, and then look at the movement of some of the properties over here as well. And do consider, of course, certain frameworks that we have at our moat analysis, because we do note that certain older freehold projects, they are very small in terms of boutique development. They're good for stay, good for privacy, but appreciation is pretty weak because of a low transaction count. You can refer to previous NOTG episodes. So for this episode, I just want to share with you this key concept called pre-catalyst and the double catalyst PSF push. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Feeling like a brand new